Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to Signals and Standards with Suzie, the show where we decode mixed messages, raise the bar, and serve up real talk with a side of empowerment. I'm your host, Suzie, your go-to for truth bombs, clarity, and the kind of tough love that gets you unstuck and back in the driver's seat of your life. Together, let's turn those signals into action. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Signals and Standards with Suzie. I'm Suzie, your guide to navigating relationships with clarity, boundaries, and empowerment. Today, we're going to talk about something a little spooky, but trust me, it's also incredibly enlightening. We're diving into the monsters that show up in our relationships. Things like ghosters, zombies, breadcrumbers, energy vampires, werewolves, and even drama llamas. Now, before you laugh, hear me out. These relationship monsters aren't just fun labels. They're a way to understand recurring patterns that leave us drained, frustrated, or stuck. Identifying them can actually be the solution to so many of your problems. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about reclaiming your energy and your standards. As we explore these monsters, you'll see how handling them can lift you higher, help you create better connections, and most importantly, empower you to put yourself first. I've often discussed the importance of spotting these patterns early, setting your boundaries, and recognizing when someone is not the right fit for your energy or your life. So let's dig in and figure out how you can transform these spooky encounters into empowerment opportunities. Let's get started. So when we discuss relationships, most people envision love, connection, and support. However, the truth is sometimes what we receive looks very different. Sometimes, instead of a healthy connection, we find ourselves face to face with what I like to call relationship monsters. Now, these aren't the monsters under your bed or the ones from scary movies, but they can be just as unsettling. They creep into our lives, disguised as everyday interactions. Still, if you look closely, you'll see the patterns. The ghoster who vanishes without a word, the zombie who comes back from the emotional dead, the breadcrumber who keeps you hooked but never feeds you entirely, the energy vampire who drains every ounce of the life out of you, the werewolf who changes without warning, and the drama llama who thrives on chaos. We all know someone. These monsters are more than just annoying habits. They're red flags, big red flags. They're signals, and they're here to teach us a lesson. Here's the empowering part. They're also opportunities. Each one reveals where our boundaries might be shaky, where our standards need reinforcement, and where we can grow stronger in choosing how we respond. And when you learn how to recognize them, and more importantly, how to handle them, you're not just surviving these encounters. You're thriving, rising higher, and stepping into your power. So let's break them down together. Let's start with ghosters. So ghosters, they're like shadows in the night, right? They're one moment and gone the next, leaving behind nothing but silence. No explanation, no closure, just emptiness. It's natural to wonder what you did wrong, but the research shows ghosting is rarely about you. According to a 2020 study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, ghosting is often a self-protective behavior for the ghoster, a way to avoid confrontation, discomfort, or even vulnerability. Psychologists maintain that being ghosted usually leads to emotional distress, feelings of rejection, self-doubt, even grief. But here's the shift in perspective. Ghosting isn't about your value. It's about their inability to communicate. Imagine it this way. If someone floats away from your life like a thief in the night, it's because they didn't have the emotional tools to stay. Not because you weren't worthy. Your empowerment comes from choosing not to chase ghosts, but instead to invest your energy into people who are emotionally mature enough to show up and stay consistent. Think about this. Have you ever blamed yourself for someone else's silence? What if instead of asking, why did they leave, you asked, why am I chasing someone who can't stay or doesn't want to stay? Think about it. All right, zombies. So zombies, on the other hand, are the ghosts who don't stay gone. They reappear sometimes after weeks, sometimes after months or years, acting like nothing ever happened. According to experts, zombieing has become a recognizable trend, often following ghosting. And these reappearances usually aren't about genuine reconnection. More often, they're about ego, validation, convenience, or even boredom. Think of it like someone knocking on your emotional door after abandoning you before. The question is, do you answer? Empowerment here is about boundaries. Just because someone re-enters doesn't mean they deserve re-entry into your peace. This is where you flip the script. Instead of asking, why did they come back? Ask yourself, does letting them back in align with my growth? Not every knock requires a response. And that's the aha moment here. You will get to decide who has access to your energy. So next time someone zombies back into your life, in your love life, personal life, friendship, family, whatever, ask yourself, are they truly showing up for me, or are they just testing if I'll still answer? Think about that. Okay, breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs are sneakier. They don't vanish entirely, nor do they commit. Instead, they sprinkle tiny bits of attention, an occasional text, a like on your social post, a vague promise, just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to build something real. Experts maintain that breadcrumbing is often driven by fear of loneliness or a desire to maintain control rather than genuine interest. They just want to keep you hanging, right? Here's the trap. Those crumbs feel like something, but really, they're not. They're illusions of connection. To use a metaphor, it's like sitting at a table, starving, while someone feeds you crumbs and convinces you it's a feast. Once you recognize it for what it is, you realize you deserve the whole meal. Empowerment here means that raising your standards and demanding reciprocity and walking away from half-effort connections. Because crumbs are not love or friendship. You deserve the whole loaf. So if you've ever mistaken crumbs for a meal, you need to ask yourself, what would it feel like to sit at a table where you're truly fed, seen, and valued, including dessert? Think about that. Energy vampires, on the other hand, they don't disappear. They linger and they drain the life out of you. They're the ones who thrive on negativity, who offload their problems on you, who leave you feeling heavier than when you arrived. Research on emotional contamination shows that moods, especially negative ones, spread quickly in relationships and social settings. Spend too much time around energy vampires, and you end up carrying their darkness as if it's your own. The empowering truth? Protecting your energy is not selfish. It's a matter of survival. Choosing to limit their access, setting boundaries around how much you engage, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you are essential. You are not a battery pack for someone else's chaos. Your light is meant to shine, and no one gets to dim it. So reflect on this. Who leaves you lighter after spending time together? And who leaves you drained? What if your circle only included those who recharged you? Who are the battery packs in your life? Think about it. Werewolves, they're unpredictable. They're sweet and affectionate one moment, distant or volatile the next. Being around them feels like emotional whiplash. You never know which version you'll get. Research in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships confirmed that emotional volatility is really strongly tied to dissatisfaction and distress in relationships. Here's the metaphor to think about. Being with a werewolf is like standing in a storm. Sometimes there's calm, sometimes there's chaos, but you're never secure. The empowering choice isn't to tame the wolf, it's to step out of the storm. You can't control their mood swings, but you can control how much access they have to you. Prioritizing emotional consistency is not asking too much. It's the bare minimum for peace. So remember this. Stability is a love language. Ask yourself, why accept storms when you deserve safe ground? Lastly, I'm going to talk about drama llamas. We all know a drama llama. We've seen them around. They've got a category all their own. They don't vanish or transform. They stir the pot. They thrive on conflict and chaos, even when there's no real reason for it. Drama is their fuel, and pulling others into it gives them a sense of power. Studies on conflict cycles indicate that repeated engagement in unnecessary drama can escalate stress and emotional burnout. The empowering choice is simple. Opt out. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Saying no to drama isn't avoidance, it's maturity. By refusing to be dragged into their storms, you preserve your energy and make space for healthier, calmer connections. Imagine choosing serenity over chaos every single time. That there is emotional freedom. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped feeding the drama and started feeding your peace instead? So here's a bigger picture. All these so-called monsters, ghosters, zombies, breadcrumbers, energy vampires, werewolves, drama llamas, they aren't just people to avoid. They're mirrors, actually. Each one reveals something vital, where your boundaries are weak, where your energy is leaking, and where you need to grow. And this is where empowerment lives. Research across psychology and relationship studies echo the same truth. It's not the monsters themselves that define your journey. It's how you respond to them. Do you chase ghosts? Do you stand tall in your worth? Do you let zombies back in? Or do you protect your peace? Do you settle for those breadcrumbs? Or do you demand the feast? The empowering answer is always yours to choose. The monsters aren't the problem. It's your engagement with them that matters. And here's the good news. You always hold the power to reset, to rise, and to step into connections that reflect your highest standards. Take a moment here. Think about which of these creatures you've encountered recently. Was it the ghoster who slipped into silence? Was it the zombie who returned out of nowhere? Or the breadcrumber who dangled just enough attention to keep you hanging on? Maybe it was the energy vampire, the werewolf, or the drama llama who thrived on chaos. What if every monster you faced wasn't a punishment, but a teacher? What if every painful encounter was pointing you back toward your own power? When you pause to reflect, you begin to see that these monsters are not simply roadblocks, they're mirrors. They reveal where your boundaries are stretched, where your standards need reinforcement, and where your energy is being drained. The fundamental shift happens when you realize the monsters themselves aren't the problem. They will always exist in one form or another. The more profound truth is that your power lies in how you choose to respond, how you choose to engage, and how you choose to protect your peace. The aha moment is recognizing that you don't have to tame the monster, you only have to master yourself. And when you do, you step into a level of strength and clarity that no ghoster, no zombie, no vampire, no werewolf, and no drama llama can take away. Let's take a moment to reflect on that. Thank you again for joining us. Next, we'll be answering some great listener questions. Remember, you can always send in your own questions at powercoachsuzie.com. So here's our first question. How do I stop chasing someone who keeps ghosting me? Good question. This is such a powerful and important question too. And honestly, it's one that so many people struggle with. Ghosting has become one of the most common and painful experiences in modern dating. When someone disappears without explanation, your first instinct is often to turn inward and wonder, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. Ghosting is far more about avoidance and emotional immaturity than it is about you. Research highlights that ghosting is often a self-protective behavior. People ghost because they want to avoid confrontation. They lack the tools for healthy communication, or they're uncomfortable with emotional vulnerability. Psychology also explains that while ghosting spares the ghoster from an awkward conversation, it leaves the person on the receiving end struggling with confusion, self-doubt, and, even feelings of rejection. That emotional weight is real, but it's misplaced. Their silence is not a verdict on your value. I've often written about how ghosting is less about closure and more about clarity. The clarity is this. If someone shows you that they're unwilling or unable to communicate, they're not capable of giving you the consistency and effort you deserve. That's information you can use to move forward. It may not feel good, but it's freeing once you reframe it. So how do you stop chasing someone who keeps ghosting you? The first step is to shift the story in your head. Instead of saying, I need to win them back, or I need to prove I'm worth their attention, reframe it to, they've shown me who they are, and I'm choosing not to participate in their pattern anymore. That mental shift is everything. From there, protect your energy by limiting or eliminating follow-ups. Every time you send another message hoping for a reply, you're investing your time and emotional resources into a black hole. You're essentially trying to have a conversation with silence, and silence cannot give you what you're looking for. Instead, redirect that energy towards people who consistently show up for you. Friends, family, or even potential partners who demonstrate reliability and emotional maturity. Another key step is to set clear expectations for yourself about what you want and need in a relationship. Ask yourself, do I want someone who disappears when things get real? Or do I want someone who can lean into discomfort and have honest conversations, even when it's not easy? When you set the standard, you stop tolerating ghost-like behavior because it no longer aligns with your vision for love and connection. Remember, ghosters thrive on ambiguity. They disappear because it's easier for them than communicating. But you don't have to live in their ambiguity. You have the power to create clarity for yourself. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you reclaim your self-worth. So, the next time someone tries to vanish on you, flip the script. Instead of asking, why didn't they choose me? Remind yourself, I'm choosing me. It's a them problem, not a you problem. Realizing that is where real empowerment begins. Here's our second question. What if someone keeps coming back after I've moved on, but I feel tempted to let them in? This is such a relatable question because almost everyone has experienced what I like to call the zombie trap. Just like in the movies, zombies rise from the dead. These are the people who ghost you or walk away only to reappear after weeks, months, or even years of silence. And when they show up again, it can feel somewhat unclear. A part of you might think, maybe they've changed. Maybe they finally realized my worth. But here's the thing. Their return often isn't about your value. It's about their comfort. Zombieing is a common trend that follows ghosting, typically in the dating world, but can also manifest in other areas of your life too. People resurface not because they're ready to offer real commitment, but because they crave validation, convenience, or distraction. It's less about building something new with you and more about easing their own loneliness. These comebacks often happen when the person feels bored, insecure, or needs a quick ego boost. In other words, their return says everything about where they are and very little bit about what you deserve. I've written about how letting someone back in after they've already abandoned you is like reopening an old wound. Sure, the attention feels good at first and you remember all the good times, but soon enough, you're dealing with the same inconsistency and disappointment. That momentary thrill isn't worth the cycle of pain it drags back into you. What feels familiar isn't always healthy because we often cling to happy feelings and to memories, of course. Forgetting the negative ones, forgetting all the bad days and remembering all the good ones, or how they made you feel good, but not how they gave you a mental breakdown. Yeah, that. So here's where empowerment comes in. Boundaries are your strongest protection. When someone resurfaces, you get to decide if their return aligns with your growth or if it's just a disruption to the progress you've made. So ask yourself, does this person add peace to my life or do they bring back chaos? Do they meet the standards I've set for myself or are they pulling me back into a version of me I've already outgrown? Think of it this way. When you've cleaned your house, you don't leave the door wide open for dust and dirt to blow back in. You protect that space because you worked hard to make it clean. The same is true for your emotional well-being. If you've moved forward and created stability, why let someone track mud all over your progress? Remember, temptation is entirely normal. It's human to crave attention, validation, or even have a bit of nostalgia. Totally okay. But your power lies in recognizing the difference between a genuine opportunity for growth and a recycled pattern that will only keep you stuck. Saying no to what doesn't serve you is not a rejection. It's redirection towards something better. So the next time a zombie shows up knocking on your emotional door, pause and check in with yourself. You don't owe them access just because they came back. Your worth isn't defined by who returns. It's determined by who consistently shows up and invests in you. The aha moment here is this. Love that comes back from the dead without actual, genuine, noticeable, consistent change is not a second chance. It's a second round of the same lesson, and you will keep experiencing that lesson until you learn it. You are the one who gets to decide if you are ready to take the ride again. Or maybe if you're prepared to keep walking forward into healthier, more consistent love. Here's our third and final question. I feel stuck in a relationship with someone who drains me emotionally. How do I handle it? This question hits at the heart of something so many people silently struggle with: being connected to someone who constantly takes more than they give, leaving you exhausted, anxious, and depleted. These are what I call energy vampires. They don't always vanish like ghosts or pop back up like zombies, but their impact can be just as damaging because they chip away at your emotional reserves day by day. Research indicates that moods, especially negative ones, spread rapidly in relationships of any kind. When you're constantly around someone who complains, criticizes, or stirs up drama, their energy becomes your energy. We've all been around someone like that, right? Over time, this chronic exposure can lead to emotional burnout and even affect your physical health. One study found that people in emotionally draining relationships are more likely to report symptoms of stress, fatigue, and lower overall well being. This isn't just in your head, it's genuine. I've also written about how these draining dynamics often sneak up on you. At first, you excuse the behavior. They just had a bad day, or, oh, that's just how they are. But over time, you realize you're walking on eggshells, bracing yourself for their negativity and neglecting your own needs to keep the peace. That's not love. It's not even friendship. And it's undoubtedly not partnership. It's survival mode. And staying in survival mode keeps you stuck and messes with your mental health. So how do you handle it? First, spotting the signs early is key. Notice how you feel after spending time with this person. Do you feel lighter, supported, and understood? Or do you feel drained, resentful, and smaller than before? Your body and emotions will tell you the truth long before your mind rationalizes it away. Second, boundaries aren't just helpful, they're necessary. Set limits on the time and energy you invest, and be clear with yourself about the behaviors you will and will not tolerate. This doesn't always mean cutting the person out completely, though sometimes it does. It actually means protecting your energy as if it were the most valuable resource you own, because it is. Third, prioritize recharging your energy through self-care routines. Whether it's meditation, journaling, movement, or time with people who uplift you, these practices remind you of who you are outside of that draining dynamic. They reset your nervous system and refill your emotional cup, so you're not constantly running on empty. Finally, remember that by reducing interactions with energy vampires, you naturally create space for healthier, life-giving relationships to enter. The law of relationships is simple. What you tolerate, you attract. When you stop tolerating emotional drain, you start attracting emotional nourishment. Here's the empowering truth. You don't have to let anyone dim your light. The more you protect your energy, the more radiant, confident, and empowered you become. And that, in turn, draws in people who don't just take from you, but pour back into you. The aha moment here is this: being drained isn't love, it's erosion. And the antidote is not to fight harder for their attention, but to fiercely protect your energy and redirect it into people, practices, and partnerships that let you thrive. So reflect for a moment. What is one pattern you see repeating in your relationships that you could change today? Maybe it's always chasing after the ghost who never answers. Maybe it's letting the zombies slip back into your life even when you know better. Or maybe it's accepting breadcrumbs when you know you deserve the whole loaf. Perhaps it's allowing energy vampires to drain you, leaving you too tired to invest in people who truly value you. Listen, we've all been there. And recognizing the cycle is the first step to breaking it. So it's an important reflection. The empowering truth is this: these patterns aren't random. They're signals pointing you back to your own boundaries, your own standards, and your own sense of self-worth. Every frustrating encounter with any of these monsters mentioned is actually an invitation to rise higher, to choose differently this time, to set the limit you didn't set before, and to prioritize your peace over chaos. The power to shift your relationship dynamics has always been in your hands. No ghost, no zombie, no energy vampire can take that away. You're not powerless in the face of these patterns. You're the one who decides whether they continue or they end. That realization is the moment everything changes, because the monsters only have power if you keep opening the door. And when you start closing those doors with intention, you create space for something far more critical. Relationships that reflect your worth, your values, and your growth. This isn't just empowerment, it's freedom. So think about that. Think about those relationships for a moment. Thank you again for joining us today. Now I'd like to share a story from a recent session with a client, as this is something many of us have experienced at some point in our lives, whether in dating, friendships, family dynamics, or even professional relationships. She came to me feeling stuck, as if she were trapped in quicksand. Every effort she made, trying new strategies, setting goals for herself, being proactive, felt like it pulled her deeper instead of helping her rise. She described a familiar cycle of hope and disappointment, giving her time, her energy, her heart, only to feel like she was running in circles with no real progress or outcomes. And as we talked, one pattern became painfully clear. She tended to let people back in after they had already shown their patterns to her. She'd given someone a second chance time and time again, and then she did it with someone else, believing each time would be different, only to find herself in the same place of uncertainty or emotional depletion. I've been there too. I think we all have. I've mistakenly let people back into my life, thinking familiarity was a sign of growth. Nostalgia was a sign of connection. We had something. And hope a signal that it was a signal that they had changed, that they came back. Oh, maybe they're different. Look, they've got their life together now, or whatever. Maybe it was an ex-partner, perhaps it was a friend or even someone in my professional world. Each time I opened the door without boundaries, I ended up repeating lessons I thought I'd already learned. The emotional weight of those second chances is real, but the insight they bring is even more powerful. Remember I said we keep repeating the mistakes that we don't learn? We started by focusing on small achievable steps using SMART goals. I spoke about that before. If you remember, they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, relevant, time-bound. First, she identified one personal boundary to uphold each week. Perhaps it was declining late-night messages that left her anxious. The ones, the "what are you doing" or "are you up" sent at 2 a.m. with ulterior motives. Or maybe even limiting interactions with someone who repeatedly showed inconsistency. These weren't grand gestures. They were tiny acts of self-respect that gradually built her confidence and reminded her that she had a voice and a choice in how her energy was spent. Each small victory was like placing a stone in a river. Slowly, it created a path of stability and a path of clarity amidst the turbulent waters of her life. Once she gained momentum from these small wins, we built on it. She began creating weekly self-care rituals, including journaling, meditation, physical movement, and spending intentional time with people who uplifted her. These routines were more than just tasks. They become affirmations of her worth and her commitment to herself. They reminded her daily that she could be consistent with her own needs, even when others were inconsistent. The next step was setting a broader goal, cultivating relationships with people who are emotionally available, people who are consistent, and people who are capable of meeting her standards in all aspects of her life. This wasn't about fixing other people. It was about refusing to tolerate patterns that no longer served her and stepping into her power as a chooser, not a reactor. We explored therapy to address deeper issues related to self-worth, attachment, and the subtle patterns that often cause us to repeat the same behaviors. Therapy provided her a mirror and a toolbox, tools for recognizing early warning signs, tools for processing emotions, and strengthening boundaries, and recognizing why she did all this to begin with. The takeaway here is profound. Empowerment doesn't happen in a single leap. It happens in consistent, intentional steps, baby steps. Each small choice, each boundary honored, each ritual kept is a building block. Tiny wins compound into massive progress. And when combined with insight, reflection, and professional support, they create a transformation that touches every aspect of life. How you show up in love, in friendship, and even in your career. So, if you've ever found yourself letting someone back in, thinking they had changed, or giving second chances when every previous experience suggested otherwise, remember this. The lesson is never about them. It's about you. It's about recognizing your worth, protecting your energy, and stepping boldly into the life and relationships you truly deserve. Each choice to honor yourself, each decision to close the door on patterns that no longer serve you, is proof that you're capable, worthy, and ready to rise into the next chapter of your life. And here's a little secret I tell all my clients. Every time you reclaim your boundaries, you reclaim your power. Every time you choose yourself over repetition, you create space for something real, something consistent, and something nourishing to enter your life. That's not just growth, that is transformation. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of Signals and Standards with Suzie. Today we've explored the monsters that show up in our relationships. The ghosters, the zombies, the breadcrumbers, the energy vampires, the werewolves, and of course the drama llamas. On the surface, it might seem like identifying them is about labeling others, but the real purpose is far deeper. Recognizing these patterns is about understanding the dynamics at play, protecting your emotional and mental energy, and in the end, really reclaiming your personal power. It's about seeing invisible currents that pull you into the same cycles over and over and giving yourself the tools to navigate them with clarity and confidence. What we've learned today is that these monsters are mirrors, not enemies. They reflect where your boundaries may have been weak, where your standards could have been raised, and ultimately where your emotional energy may have been depleted. Each encounter is an opportunity to pause, reflect, and ask yourself, am I investing in what serves me, or am I caught in a pattern that keeps me small? That question alone can be transformative because it shifts the focus back to you, your growth, your choices, and your empowerment. The real takeaway is this. You don't have to tame anyone else's chaos. You only need to learn how to manage your response, reinforce your boundaries, and protect your energy. When you do, you create space for relationships that are nourishing, consistent, and aligned with your values. You attract people who uplift you instead of draining you, who meet your standards instead of testing them, and who reflect the love and respect you give yourself. What's in it for you? Clarity, confidence, and control. You leave the confusion, frustration, and self-doubt behind. You step into your power with intention, knowing that your peace is non-negotiable. Every time you identify a monster in your life, set a boundary. Reclaim your energy. You're not just surviving the world, the relationships, the dating, the friendships, whatever interactions you have with other people. You shouldn't be in survival mode all the time. You need to be into thriving mode. Now, as you move forward, remember this. The monsters themselves aren't the problem. The real power lies in how you engage with them. You hold the key to your own happiness, growth, and fulfillment. Don't be a passive observer. When you choose to respond from a place of strength and self-respect, you aren't just managing relationships. You're mastering the art of living with empowered confidence. Take this with you. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself where you can enforce boundaries today. Decide who or what deserves your energy and take intentional steps to protect it. The monsters are out there, but so is your power, and the choice of how to wield it is yours. It's time for our affirmations for the week. So repeat after me. I face my relationship monsters with courage, because you're strong and you can handle this. I set clear boundaries and protect my energy. Every boundary you set makes you stronger. I attract people who uplift and respect me, because you deserve healthy and nourishing connections. I grow a little braver every day, because every step forward is progress. I face my relationship monsters with courage. I set clear boundaries and protect my energy. I attract people who uplift and respect me. I grow a little braver every day. You are powerful, deserving, and fully capable of taming the monsters in your relationship. And remember, every monster you face is an opportunity to rise higher, claim your space, and step into the life, the love, and respect that you truly deserve. Believe it. Thank you for being here and stepping into your power with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week for another empowering conversation. You can also catch the replay on the Signals and Standards podcast on all your favorite platforms. For daily inspiration and practical advice, find me on social media at Power Coach Suzie. Got questions or ideas for the show? Head to powercoachsuzie.com where you can connect with me, explore the blog, or learn more about what I do. This is Suzie signing off. Until next time, keep reading the signals and never, ever lower your standards.